Hello. Is that better? Okay, so we have, I think, about 15 minutes. We're going to talk and then take questions. And we could talk for like an hour and a half because I've got so many things I want to talk about here. No? Okay. Okay. So the first question I have, which I'm sure is on the mind of every surfer here, is a big one. Was he a goofy foot or a regular foot, dude?
He wasn't goofy. He wasn't goofy. I kind of shot out when he played goofy.
I saw. I think it was switch. I think he was going on.
I think he switched too, but I had enough Hawaiians to pick the goofy up. I was like, all right.
And I think a lot of photos of him. Okay, we got that out of the way. Thanks. So I think it's really interesting how you came to this story, and so that last shot of the statue where he cuts down to the name on the statue is pretty significant, and you should tell that whole story.
Yeah, I don't know if you know that Ofatu is Tongan for I love you. So that's what it was, is I love you, Uncle Jan. Hello? Okay, yeah, so it's what the way the story goes is that's my Uncle Jan. He's the only reason I exist. He was in Hawaii as an artist, and my mom went to live with him. And then while she was living with him, going to school, he was an art professor. She found my dad, who just immigrated to Hawaii from Tonga. And so out came me. Yeah, a couple things happened. And then my mom moved to Utah to raise me. So she took her little brown boy to Utah. And then she married a blonde-haired, blue-eyed kid, and had a guy that had nothing but blonde-haired, blue-eyed kids. So I stick out in my family, really a lot. But so what happened was, though, my uncle, he'd always been a huge factor in my career. He was a big-time artist. As a little kid, when you get to have someone doing art for a living and doing really big things, it's like the best thing in the world. There we go. Hello. Is that you or me? Okay, but yeah, that's the bet. Is that even, I heard you. I heard it? No. I guess I never heard it. We can't do that. But no, so he always had a pretty heavy influence on my career. He would always keep up on me, especially because I was an artist and he thought it was cool. And I started doing some big things, some big music videos. If you've seen like Imagine Dragons, like the Deems music video, the Gold, and I was nominated for these awards. And then I'd written and directed a movie out. And so he thought, maybe it's time to try to tell the Duke story. No one's doing it. And it was kind of, it's like, okay, Uncle, whatever. But he died shortly after that. And when he died, I was at his funeral, and I just couldn't get off my mind. And so I started the journey on this thing. And there's a lot to it on this one. With Duke, like I worked at the History Channel for a little while on a show called Gangland, and we did one episode specifically on the Tongan Crip Gang. And it was wild to me to see so many Polynesian kids who have this idea of who their heroes are, or who they should be, and it led them to this gang culture. And it was like, I grew up with Duke as my hero. And so I was like, what the F? And so it's like, with my uncle and then that kind of thing coming up on me, it's like, maybe it's time to chase some of these heroes that I've had. I've been doing a lot. And so that's what pushed us in the end. And it's weird, like, if anyone that's been a filmmaker, you don't know what you're gonna do. You just go for it. And it's kind of like the one who doesn't stop is the one thing I stuck at in my life is quitting things. And I just didn't stop until I ran into the right people and kept going. So that's what got us into this. But it goes to my uncle. This was for him. This was his wish for me.
And it was 5 years.
Yeah, so in 2016. Yeah, so, yeah, it was a beast. COVID helped. And they gave me a nice extra year to drive my wife crazy and edit nonstop and never leave my basement, because what else are you going to do, Okay.
So when you were researching it and when you were producing it, was there anything you found out about Duke that really surprised you, that you thought, oh, I can't wait to tell the world this?
Oh, man. What was it? I think for me, what I thought was funny is I went into this, just kind of excited to be this proud Polynesian American kid to show off our guy. Because that's what everyone does. You show off your guy. And with Duke, I had this goal that when people in America talk about Jesse Owens, and Jackie Robinson, and Muhammad Ali, and Jack Robinson, then they'll also throw Duke right in there in that conversation with Jim Thorpe and them, because he's that important. But what happened is I started noticing he was actually more famous not for the championships. He was famous for the person he was. And he was famous for his aloha. And so that was the first thing that really shocked me about the whole thing, was that I get around surfers, and a lot of them didn't even know he was a champion. And it's a wildest thing to me, because all those names I told you, they're champions, and we know them as champs. But with Duke, it's more than a champion. And it's just the wildest thing. It's the weirdest anomaly to run into. And I would say the other funniest thing that I think I mentioned to you before is that he was faster at 42 than he was in his 20s. You know, and there's a reason for that. There's a reason. He hated humiliating people. You know, you saw the one part, it's hilarious. Like, I can imagine the coach is screaming at him when he's like, oh, I'm going to win, slow him down, you know? But it's because he didn't like to make people feel bad. He wanted to win, but he didn't want everyone to quit either. He knew it were, but he was just like, no, I'm gonna do my thing. And it's funny, when we went to Australia was a young country. Oh, serious. No, Australia was a young country that was just excited to somehow get on the world stage. Inviting Duke and having him break world records on their, in their country would put them in the newspaper. And they loved that. But the problem was Duke was refusing to beat anyone back. And so they came up with an idea where they would give someone, they go, okay, Duke needs 2 seconds to beat a world record. So they give a guy a 2-second head start, and then have Duke go. And so if you go to Australia and you go to that statue, there's a huge plaque that have all of his world records. Now you know how he got them. And that's what's going on. And it is the only tragedy of one of the big tragedies, there's many of them, in World War I, is that because of the thing I found out about that I thought was interesting was that Germany wanted to beat Duke so bad. Like, so bad that they sent Germans to America. They studied everything he did after the 1912 Olympics and built an entire team just to beat Duke. And that was the entire goal of this team that would have raced in 1916. And it's one of the sad things, because we probably would have seen how fast he was. Because there was a team built to beat him. You know, and it's one of those things that I get sad about. We never will know how fast he could have been. But what we do know is that he cared more about the people he competed with than just winning. And I always thought that was interesting. He was going to win, because winning's fun. But he wanted to make sure everyone had a good time.
The other thing I think is really interesting about that whole period was that swimming was like as popular as basketball and football is now. So when you go back and look at the newspaper reports from when he was doing that tour of the country right before he went to Stockholm, it was like front page news.
Yeah.
Which never would have occurred to me. So I think people think you might be exaggerating, but there were huge crowds for swimming events.
Yeah, I mean, when they say thousands, it's no exaggeration.
Even just as exhibitions.
Yeah. It's because I was swimming, like, the level, like, the difference between a pro swimmer and NBA was so drastic. I mean, like, you look at, like, old cartoons when they have, like, the bodybuilder guys, or hoop, like, big belly guys. That's what swimmers were back then. Out comes Duke, he looks like He-Man. And he's out there, and he's so good looking and so cool. It's like he just drew an even bigger crowd than everything he did.
So, were there were there any moments in his life or anything that you didn't have time to get in there? Is there anything you were like killing yourself you were able to include?
I'll take this one out anymore. Yeah, I'll take that. There we go. Anything I didn't include. The problem, when Duke, in the third act, when Duke is at the back end, and he's in Hawaii, there's so many cool stories. It's one of the hardest parts of this doc was not ruining some of the stories that are obviously not true, but you kind of want, what makes legends is legends. Like the stories that, you can't really verify. Like that quote, you can't verify it. People will fight about it, but it's fun because it's a legend. That's what makes legends, It's like the cherry tree. It's like, well, I don't know. It's that kind of stuff. That's when you go beyond. And so, I'd say though, like, I think there's so many stories of his kindness that I wish I could have put in there. And that's one of them that I loved. I told him earlier, I don't remember who I was talking about. It's one of my favorite ones that Fred Hemmings was talking about, where he became so good at finding the kind way out of a situation that it would blow people's minds. They couldn't, oh, that was my turn. There we go. They couldn't believe how nice he was. Like, it was at a competition out here in California. They had, and Fred Hemmings, the whole surf team, you look, those guys were like linebackers, you know, to ride those boards where they did. They were big dudes. This competition had happened, and this guy that took second place just felt gypped. He felt like he got screwed. And Duke is the guy handing out the awards. So you still just, you do what you can to be cool. And Duke hands this award to second place, and the guy just takes the award and smashes it in a garbage can. And walks up the stage, and of course, all of Duke's guys are like, all right, Duke, we're gonna kill the dude, we'll be right back. It's like, you don't disrespect like that. And Duke stops, he's like, no, look, isn't it wonderful how much he cares? and even the dude that broke it's like, yeah, it's like every single person in that situation hit a calm on it, and like something they're all proud of each other. Like, yeah, you smashed that, you want better than that, yeah, and it's just a really, but that's the kind of guy he was. He found a way to be nice. And granted, there's, like, in the article you wrote, there's times where that probably did hurt him at times, but he was so focused on the other person. And that's one thing I've noticed about him when you read his stories. He's never talking to a group, it's always an individual. So if someone did something mean to him, it was never a group, it was an individual. And it was easy for him to look past things. It was always person to person. And then there was also the challenge. If someone was ultra racist or something at him, he's like, I'm gonna get you to like me. That's how he treated it. And it's a very different approach that a lot of people have nowadays. Nowadays a lot of people want to fight it. Where he was like, nah, I'm gonna get you to like me. We'll figure this out. It's the coolest thing. It's like, I don't know where that all comes from, because not everybody can be like that. And that's why I wonder if he's the right guy at the right time. But
I've never really been a big fan of documentaries that do reenactments, but it really works in this case. And I'd love you to tell them all the story about Dwayne DeSoto, who, by the way, that guy who would play Duke is a world champion longboarder, one of the best surfers, Makaha guy, deep Hawaiian roots. So you didn't audition. I love it.
I was pretty dead set on Hawaiian surf, Victor dude. I wasn't gonna do that. And it was funny because, well, Makaha for one thing, when Makaha speaks, you listen. That's just how Makaha. If you guys have been there, Makaha is they call it the Wild West for a reason in Oahu. That's just how it works. And some people have thrown me some other guys to look at, but when Buffalo Keilana drops you a guy and Brian Keilana, the true Makaha people, you look. And it was the funniest thing. We went out there. And they were like, oh, Dwayne's a guy, Dwayne. So I'm like, all right, so go to God and look. I remember looking out in the water, I'm like, which guy? And I look, and there's this guy, and it looks like a card table to me, on a bat with like 3 kids on it, surfing on it. Like that, riding back and forth. I'm like, oh my gosh, like what is that? And he looked like Duke. It was like, oh, that's our guy. And you look at what we asked him to pull off in this thing, the swimming, the surfing, standing on your head on a board with no fin, and like all these things. The board that we're shaping is the board we use for the recreations. And Dwayne is so hardcore Hawaiian. He said no at first. So he's like, no one should play this. He's like, I can't do it. But he had the right guys to go, no, you're the one. You play it. And so he wanted to be like, well, if I'm doing it, I'm doing it. And that board, it's redwood, hundreds of years old redwood from actually out here in California that they've been saving, that we shaped into the board. It still gets heavy in the water. Heavier in the water. So every time he's throwing that thing on his shoulder, we're talking hundreds of pounds. And it's a 9-footer. And it's a wild thing to me. Like there's no fin on that thing. There's some of the drone shots where I watch it and it's going sideways as much as it's going forward. But especially when he does the tandem, that sometimes if you look at it right, you'll see that he's got 1 foot on the board, 1 foot steering, and holding the girl on his shoulders. And so that's how good this guy had to be. And really it shows, man, it was the right time to make this, because a guy like that, it's really hard to find that can ride that board.
that leads me to talk about the other thing about Dwayne that you mentioned, which was how I just lost my train of thought. I'm going to get back to it. I want to talk a little about the life-saving lineage that goes on in there. Because I think that there's a really interesting direct line from Duke rescuing that girl, when you start rescuing those 8 people in Corona del Mar, and then Buffalo Keohana, down to Brian Keohana, who's in the movie. And Brian has come here a lot to teach people how to rescue. Jeff Clark has been part of that. Tim West, Frank Girardi, a lot of local people. So it's just like 3 dots away from Duke to here, which I thought was really interesting. I don't know what you mentioned is that you told me you shot all the water stuff in 3 days. 3 days. That explains why in some of the swimming shots, he's not exactly swimming like Duke did. Like Duke swam with his head out of the water, and Dwayne swims like a modern swimmer. Right? And you tried to get him to change that, but you thought.
Yeah, well, you seen, we put ourselves in a situation where we could have gotten in trouble. Because it's one of the things that I really, if I have the time and I still want to push, that the Hawaiian government, I really think should mark that spot in the Hawaiian Harbor. And because the Honolulu Harbor, because that's where the first world records are broken. That's where everything in Hawaii changes, is when Duke does that race. And they don't have it marked. It took me forever to find it. And then when I found it, I was like, oh, I want to shoot here. There's like half owned by the Navy, half owned by shipping yards and all this stuff. So we just kind of got permission from a couple of people we think who gave us permission. And then just hurried and shot there. We had to put up shark nets and there's like full of dirt. It was terrible. And like, but we're rushing through these shots. But I mean, you had to. But yeah, that was in half a day that we shot that. In fact, the scene of him coming out of the water and all the people celebrating with him, we only had enough time for 1 shot, so I just grabbed my cameraman and just was shaking him, sliding him, like, get that, now get that, now so get that. Like, I was just editing, what do I need right now? You know, it's just going with it. But yeah, the stuff in the Kaha was intense. Like, what are the odds we get the waves we have? You know, it's I guess like the moment that really said something special was about to go on with this. It was, we were out there, everything was flat. So we decided to do some of our rescue scenes. We had Brian Kalon and his boys out with jet skis, shaking up the water for us. And when you tell them, hey, can you go crazy? We're like, oh. You know, like, we get out there, like one of them separated his arm, they wrecked like 10 times, it was great, but it was amazing what they did to the water, you know. I was like, yeah, great shot, just praying going down, you know, but we get out there, and Dwayne goes out to the if you know the Kaha, there's this like kind of condo, I think, sitting on the far side, and a little rock formation out there. He's on that far end, and the wave usually rides all the way across. And no one ever gets it all the way across, but it's kind of what it does. And there's actually a short break where you can ride it back out to the break if you're really good, which Dwayne did like every time, of course. But anyway, he's out there in this flat water, and out of nowhere, a wave starts to come up. And that day had been so weird. We brought that board to the beach, and someone had told us, you know, it was dead silence. That someone told us, like, last time a board had Duke's name on it on this beach, Duke was holding it. And so we're like, okay, all right, great, cool, you know, no pressure. And we get out there, and this wave, when it starts to pick up, everyone freezes because we weren't ready to shoot because it was flat. And we just watched the wave catch this wave and go from corner to corner, all the way across the beach. And luckily, the drone guy was just kind of practicing, and he got the shot. And we decided to keep it out of the dock, me and Dwayne. Yeah, the very end of it, you see when he's stepping off into the sand, that's the end of that. He wrote the whole thing, and Dwayne said he's like top 5 waves of his entire life. He never, he can't believe there's a drone shot of the whole thing that we have. Yes, I didn't include it because the Hawaiians told me, they said, okay, you need to find something that means something to you and make it sacred. And said from that point on, it will be worth something at all times if it means something to you. And so it's shot at I speak to a lot of Polynesian kid groups and a lot of other youth groups and stuff. It's one that I will pull out if the moment feels right. And it's amazing because it rips tears out of it. Because that's what happened to us on the beach. We were bawling. And like Dwayne said, he got off and he was just chicken skin. Now, if you know like why they call it chicken skin, it's because there's no geese in Hawaii. That's really why. So that's like, it's chicken skin to them. So that's what it is. But so he said he was this head to toe chicken skin, and he said he felt like Duke was there. And so it was one of those things, because how do you get surf shots in 2 days like that, and all those shots? So yeah, it was really awesome. We storyboarded the F out of it, but you need the waves.
So should I move on to audience questions now? Okay, that's been 50 minutes. Who wants to go?
And just speak loud, because when I go on, I don't like it. Repeat the questions.
Yeah, okay, good idea.
Funding, how do you do it? How do you get something like this funded?
Funding, how do you do it? How do you get something like this funded?
Beg everybody. Yeah, no, this one was, I took it to friends that believed in what I was doing, and it kind of, it reminds me of Blaze World 2, where it's like, and they tell a friend, and they tell a friend, and it just keeps getting bigger and bigger. And that's what kind of happened with my friends in LA, is they believed in this enough, they kept telling people until the Sidewinder guys, they have a non-profit organization that makes documentary films based on sports education. And when they saw what I wanted to do, they called me in, and of course, being the guy I am, I'm like, all right, I'm gonna make everyone cry in this room when I get in there, you know? And we did, we all cried. And so, we left the room and they're like, all right, let's do this. And I wanted to make a movie, that's what I originally wrote, but they said, well, why not try doc? Because it's been put into the Olympics, this would be a great thing to time out the Olympics. And so, I was like, okay, well, I don't want anyone else to make the doc, so I'm making it. So, there's no right way to do anything in this industry. There's just doing it. You know, and that's kind of how it works. And so that's what I live by. Yeah.
You have a question, right?
I just want to comment on the editing. How it was all.
The editor's in the room.
Yeah. Thank you. It was really hard. Well, my editing style, if you watch my music videos, you watch the things, I'm a dancer. All of us in my family are rugby players, and of course I'm the dancer. So I did 20 years of ballet and jazz and tap and gymnastics, and then I moved into hip hop, and then I taught dance for years and traveled the world as a dancer. And choreography and motion and music lives inside of the way I hit it. And so I always help people just feel stuff, because I feel like dance is the purest art. It's creating feelings through motion. And that's, I get to try to throw that in my film, so thank you.
We talked about it a little bit earlier today, and you said that because your editing style is so rhythmic and so musical that when people ask you to trim, as you had to do when it aired on American Masters, you had to trim 10 minutes out of it, then it was easier just to cut a whole 10-minute chunk than try to do any kind of surgical cuts, because each segment was like an orchestration.
It's a dance. Yeah.
Question about one of the last shots when you're focusing on the statue and you go down to the right foot. Did you do something funny because the way the color, it almost looked like the foot flashed, which it's not supposed to do what's better.
Did you guys get that in the back?
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, that's just me being too shaky for the stabilizer, but I like that it looks. I like that it looks that way, because I was like, yeah, I was still wondering if I should do the shot, if I should just hide the dedication somewhere, but at the last second I did that. Yeah, we had just picked up the new GoPro 8 at the time, and we needed it because, like, take the AAU shot when he jumps in the water. The big rig, you've seen those rigs used in surfing, they're huge. And I kept asking my cameraman, jump and don't care about yourself, and just make sure you get the waves, because like when the camera twists with Duke, when it goes through water with Duke, the idea for me was I want it to be, Duke is so smooth and so effective that whatever's in the world doesn't matter. It's always smooth. And the problem was, this rig, every time we hit the water, it would go up, you know, because you have to push it in, and so we got the GoPro because that would slip it. And so, but that's the camera I used for that, and yeah, that's just me just like being kind of nervous on the shot. And, yeah, thank you. I think it looks kind of cool.
So I was
hoping you could settle something for me and my dad.
Oh,
I grew up in Southern California, and my dad swears the first place to do surf was Redondo Beach Breakwall in America, other than Hawaii.
ooh.
And I have never found anyone substantiate that.
That might be right. Yeah, that might be right, because we don't know exactly everything he did before the famous ones after he was invited over to the East Coast. But he did do California. So we know that California was one of his loves. Like, he loved it out here. He really did. So I can't argue with that right now, yeah.
I'm not telling.
Yeah, yeah. Just say you're right, don't say anything after that, yeah.
Yeah, I'd just like to ask about the board and how long it took, and actually, I think it was 9 foot or something like that.
Yeah.
And where is it now?
That board, the wood we used was priceless. You know, it was kind of cool. I was telling Steve earlier while we were shooting it, the wood was used for, I don't know, 100 years or something for a winery, and the outside of that. So while we were shaving that thing down, we all got drunk. We were trying, my poor cameraman's like, dude, I'm so good. I'm like, no, you're not. Like, what's going on? You know, it's like, it was a little wild. But that board, it took us, I think it took about 2 weeks. And so while we were doing interviews, we would come back and get more shots of the board. And then the super tight shots, I actually used my iPhone for on some of them because I would hold the lens in front of it. Because someone said, that'll never work, I'm like, well, I gotta make it work. You know, I was like, I gotta prove something wrong. But the board itself now lives in Hawaii, and I think the hotels, all the major hotels have been putting it on display, just bouncing it back and forth, unless Dwayne asks for it or Tom, the guy that made it, and then they take it and write it. So, yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, nice the way you filmed it with the smoke tape and the slow motion. Very cool.
It was beautiful. I love those close-ups of the hands and that stuff. That was beautiful. The curling wood and all that. Tell them a story about the board that Duke used to rescue the people in Corona Del Mar.
Oh, geez, yeah. Yeah.
Oh, where was that? It's Laguna Beach. Yeah, it was the Laguna Beach Film Festival we were at. So that board's here in California. The board, and it's so Dwayne did the way we knew Dwayne would work is he'd actually been used for a recreation of the Australia visit before we started shooting. And they let him hold the board, the actual board that Duke shaped in Australia. Funny side story there, they let Kelly Slater hold it too, and Kelly said he was trying to figure out a way to run and try to ride it, and how far he could make it before so we get him. It's the funniest story, dude. I was like, dude, and he said that the girl behind him knew what he was doing and started holding his hips. She's like, you're but anyway, so Kelly, dude, he's hilarious when it comes to Duke stuff. He wants to ride a Duke board, and he finds out this. Anyway, so we go to the film festival here at Laguna Beach, and some guy here brought the board. The actual board that was used for the rescues, and he's just like walking with it, like bounce on the ground, slide it over here. I was like, that's the first rescue board in America. Like, I was like, oh my god. And then it was so tough though. It was taking a beating, and it's like shaped by Duke there. So it's here. It's somewhere out here.
It's got to be one of the most valuable surfboards in the world.
Yeah, I don't think he realizes what that thing's worth. It's here. Like, we put it in Dwayne's arms, and I was like, Dwayne, no one has held this many Duke boards. It's like, and he's like, why do I deserve this? It was great. And of course, we cried again because Polynesians cry. You know, that's what we like to cry. Yeah. So yeah, that board's out here somewhere, and hopefully he eventually catches on to like, this is probably should be in a museum, like a Smithsonian. So yeah.
So we got 2 minutes, and I think it would be great if you ended with this. You wanted to get this out before the surfing was in the Olympics, and you could have that in there. And you showed the lineage from surfing to skating, snowboarding, and all that.
Yeah.
By the way, shout out to my little brother who's in that part. But Carissa won her gold medal while you were in sound.
Okay, so I was raised in a rugby family, so I celebrate like a rugby player. When I celebrate things, you know, and luckily with the Polynesians, when we're shooting, like me and Dwayne, it's like, you know, hit like a linebacker, drop them, and like, yeah, like you're all happy and stuff. Well, we're doing sound mixing here, and the thing is the reason we were pushing this is because we wanted it to come out for the Olympics. And a side note is, we gave Carissa a watch of the doc before she went. And it was really exciting because she said she knew Duke, but when she got out of it, she's like, I didn't know that Duke. And it was like, it really meant a lot to us as the filmmakers, and then in the newspaper she brought up watching the doc and how she wanted to represent Hawaii like Duke. So it was like really cool for her. So Olympics hit another level for me this time. And I'm sitting there, the way it's designed, I want to say it's the Sony or Warner Brothers where we were doing it, and there's like a desk up here where I would sit with my laptop and another producer, and then there's the sound nerdy guys over here. You know, I'm nerd too, I can call them that. And they're all doing their work, and I'm watching Carissa go for it, and she's just working that girl on that gold medal run. And when she got it, I couldn't contain myself, and I just cleared my desk, flew over the top, and landed on my guys, and just started jumping on them. And I was like, oh my God! And like, of course they cheered with me. I think they were scared. Because the Tongan guy is coming at him, you know, and I was like punching and pushing people and saying, she won it! And it was just like one of those special moments, because while we're cutting this scene where Duke's talking about his dream to see him surfing in the Olympics, we just saw a Hawaiian win the first gold medal in the Olympics. You know, it's good.
I'm told that we haven't ended, so congratulations.
I'd love to see the Tongan man dance.
Unbelievably good movie.
Thank you all. Thank you. We can probably get a few pictures. We didn't want to keep many of you here much longer, but please come up and take pictures. And there were photos taken by Jan and Jason, and they're printed out front, and they're little keepsakes. We hope we see you back here tomorrow for Mermaids on Mars at 2 o'clock, buried the 1982 Alpine Meadows avalanche story at 4:30, and at 7:30 we'll be showing We Were Hyphy. And we hope you'll all return. We have lots of t-shirts and tumblers to take with you, and we hope to see you tomorrow. Thank you all for coming.
Yeah, just some guy. I don't even know who she is. I heard her name a few times. I know something like bartender or evangelist or something. No, Catherine? Right behind you. No. Oh, yeah, oh, no, I know Catherine. I know, but I'm like, what happened? Oh, I heard both. I heard both sides. That's better than not.
Right?
It's good to see, man. I'm glad you got a nice book.
Right on.
You got home. Of course, I see you.
Yeah. Right on for you.
Good job.
You won.
I do remember that.
Nice to meet you.
got 13